G'day Raiders family, it's Bourkeys here and welcome to this week's review of the post-match game against the Cowboys last Saturday afternoon, round 4. And before I get in the top 10, that was a great win. To head up to North Queensland this time of the year, particularly early in the season when it's still high 20s, high humidity and an afternoon game to boot, that's probably one of the harder road trips you could do other than going to Melbourne Storm at any time through the year. But North Queensland at home when it's still very hot is just a great win, and it just shows a lot of steel that this side of ours now has and is building beautifully as we hit round 5 later on this week. So look, just a really great win. The boys really dug for each other, and I just think the confidence we can get from going away like that and being as one and then getting those 2 points is worth its weight in gold. So look, let's get into the top 10. I want to start this week with our defence. Now, rightly so, since the start of the year, a lot has been written about our defence, and it was there again on the weekend. As I said in the past, defence is more about attitude than ability. The attitude to turn up when you need it, where your role is, where you need to be in the line. If one or two of our guys are lazy, which I'll come to shortly with Sam Williams particularly, but if one or two of us are lazy in the defensive line, we're just going to be opened up. But on the weekend, once again, we really held our resolve, other than sort of 2 areas. But as I said, this is an attitude thing with defence, and we seem to have a lot of resilience this year with the training we've done in pre-season. So we just have to keep that going. As I said, there's going to be times when it's going to break a little bit, but we've just got to hold our nerve and make sure we have the confidence with our other defensive players inside and outside of the ruck and the edges and wider. So look, the defence has been outstanding. So looking forward to more of that. And the big thing with defence, defence does win games, let's be honest. If we can keep that resolute defence and really start to expand our attack, this is going to be a really good next 4 to 5 week period for us. Number 2 this week's Ryan Sutton. Now, once again, probably one of the 4 Englishmen that hasn't really been on the radar behind Hodjo, Elliott and Johnny Bateman. But he did some gritty runs on the weekend that just needed to be made, and he was hard and he was tough. Other than an error that he made early in the first half attacking the Cowboys line, he had a great game, and this is really a good pickup for us. I thought he was a front rower, but to play lock 4 games into your NRL career in Townsville, that's a tough gig. And he was absolutely outstanding for us. And this is only going to, once again, help him get his confidence even better that he does belong in this comp. And just had that English toughness about him where he was able to take some really hard runs. There's nothing harder than a kick going down to your corner, and as a forward you've got to run 30, 40, 50 minutes to get back to your try line to bring the ball back out. It's mentally a really tough gig, and he had no qualms about putting his hand up, so top notch. The third one I've got this week is Dynamis Louis. Once again, people raise their eyebrows each week, or some weeks when Dynamis is named. With Gula in Mounties, with Royce Hunt in Mounties and so on, a lot of people are thinking, what does Louis do? Look, Louis a boring player, but he does his job. And if you go back and look at the replay from Saturday, once again, some of his gritty runs that he did and the energy that he had in those runs, bringing 2, 3, 4 defenders in, was just first class. As I said, these are the types of players you need to build sides with that allow Hodjo and Jack and Leipana the chance to get that field position with these types of guys that get in to do that crappy work that needs to be done by the forwards. So I think so far this year, Louis has been a real revelation for us. He's mobile, he looks super fit, and as I said, he has a lot of intensity earlier in that first 15 to 20 minutes where he really asks a lot of questions of the defensive line. And as I said, a number of times on the weekend against the Cows, he was having 2, 3, 4 guys in defence trying to get him to ground. That's really important because then opens up those edges that we can explore because the defensive line can't get back and spread quickly enough. So first class Dynamis. Number 4 this week, I've gone for Nickel Clockstad, CNK. Look, once again, the big thing I noticed about Nickel Clockstad on the weekend, and I mentioned it in a comment on the excellent blog, The Sportress, was that it seemed on the weekend C&K was playing more on the Leipana side in attack. He was positioning himself inside of Sam. So Sam was here, C&K on his inside, then out to Leipana. That was a really good move, because what it did is that with C&K on the inside of Sam, he was able to run to the line, and with C&K on his inside, it holds up that defensive coming across to take out BJ and Jordan. If you can hold them up on the inside, it just gives them more space. So where he was positioned was beautiful, because it did hold up defence, sweeping across, trying to get across there in numbers. And he played that role beautifully. The pass he gave to Jordan for BJ's kick-in field try was once again first class, a beautiful cut-out pass. Jordan never broke stride. And this is really looking promising for us. The first 3 or 4 games, the first 3 games by C&K, he was more or less in around that ruck area, trying to program there, which is great. But the more we can get him on the extremities now, on both the right side and the left side, it just adds another layer of lethalness to what we can do in attack. So his game once again was first class. A couple of defensive efforts he made, particularly one on Jordan McLean. If you go back and watch the replay, McLean was steaming to the line during that really tough part in the second half, that 20 minutes post half time when it was a real seesaw battle. The Cows were attacking our line and McLean took it, and C&K hit him around the midriff and drove him sideways. I don't know who came over the top. It was a first class tackle right on our line, and this kid has some really fantastic ability. Now, speaking of C&K, and I'll come to Kotrick and Rapana now as well. Like the Kotrick-Rapana game on the weekend was beautiful. They learnt their lesson from the previous week against the Knights, where when they were bringing the ball out from the back, they were spreading a bit wider, making the defence chase them instead of trying to go back into the markers and not making the markers move as much. So they really learnt their lesson from that. What I found most refreshing was when Elliot Whitehead did the charge down late in the game when Jordan scored the last try. C&K, Nick and Jordan basically took the ball from the 50-metre mark all the way to the try line. That's what our back three needs to do, and that's why these three are becoming in the top 4, at least in the top 3 or 4 of the back three in the competition. For them to take that ball all the way from the halfway to a try was gold, and that's what these guys need to do. So that was absolutely first class from those 3 on the weekend. They really took a lot of pressure off our big boys, and once again, with that type of heat and humidity up there, that's what we needed from these guys, just to give our forwards a bit of a rest, and they delivered in spades. So well done, guys. That was a fantastic effort the 3 of you to set up that try just with your runs and your commitment to getting there. So number 6, I've gone for Elliot Whitehead, who was just a monster on the weekend. And he's been a monster for us really since he joined in 2016. To have a guy like that who can float in, and the defensive work he's now doing with Hodjo is just taking a lot of that pressure off Josh to be making 25, 35, 40 tackles a game. We can't have our number 9 doing that amount of defensive work as well as trying to run our attack. So to have Elliot inside of him playing his pimp is big. It's real big. And Elliot very rarely misses a tackle, and his drive and his will to win on the weekend was first class. Like the charge down at that stage of the game to then chase and get the ball, he didn't panic. That's one thing he did beautifully. He didn't panic. He couldn't see a support with him, so he went to ground, and 2 tackles later, Jordan Rapana scores. So, like, Elliot is a mainstay of our pack now and a leader, and you can see why. Number 7, I've gone for BJ. Once again, I thought he was enormous on the weekend. He may have made one error, but I just felt his presence, bringing the ball back after Nick and C&K and Jordan done their stuff. Like some of BJ's runs from that 40-metre line up to halfway were just really intense with a lot of venom. And he just looked relaxed and smooth and just loved to be involved in the game. Didn't push the passes much this week. There wasn't any of those silly sort of passes out the back that he tries to push 15, 20 metres out. But just his presence now around those edges just causes defences to really become more alert and worry about what he's going to do. So I thought his game was first class. Number 8, I've gone for Sammy. Now, Sammy's defensive weaknesses on the weekend was that he put doubt in his own mind. He rushed out where he should have maybe hung back, and he called it wrong the both times. The first one with Morgan was always going to look for Gavin Cooper, and as soon as Sammy made that effort and went out of the line on his own, we were gone. And the second one, Once again, he went up too quick, but what he didn't do, he didn't call Horsburgh or those guys across with him and let them know that he was going to go up quickly. Morgan easily stepped inside. Were a bit lazy coming, if you watch the replay. Corey and I can't recall who else it was, it may have been Johnny Bateman, also missed Morgan. They were a bit lazy coming across and coming up, and our line was staggered. And that's how the second try with Asatazi was scored, because we just came up with a fractured line. So if Sam's going to go, he's got to tell those guys inside that he's going to go, so they can come up with him as well to keep that nice straight line we have. I still don't think that Aidan Caesar should be back in the side this week. I just think we've now won 2 straight with Sammy. I don't see any reason to change it. Now, whether Ricky does, obviously we'll know tomorrow night when the sides are named, but I just think that Sammy did enough on the weekend with his attack specifically and his kicking game and his organisation to keep that number 7 role for another week. Once again, I may be proven wrong, but I don't see what Aidan's bought in the first 2 games and now what Sammy's bought the last 2 games. Any reason to push Sammy back to the Mounties. Number 9, I've gone for Jack. Once again, I think he's just grown now into the role. I will eat humble pie. I didn't think this experiment would work, and I was very worried about the first 3 or 4 games, but Jack's really warmed to it. I really like his kicking game as well, especially his little dinks. The ball goes on a different angle when he kicks it, and it bounces around. It's like your normal grubber. And when you dink a ball like that to a corner, you've got the wings and the fullbacks standing still. They can't get any momentum up to get speed, to get through the line. They've got to wait till the ball stops bouncing awkwardly before they can make a good grab at it and get that yardage game. But the way Jack's kicks are, particularly, as I say, his little dinks to the corner, his bombs were he's really well positioned, and his kick chase now is probably the best in the team by a mile. His intensity and his want to be the first there for the kick chase on the weekend. He made 2 or 3 tackles easily from his own kicks. Just builds the confidence and builds the momentum of the rest of the players around him. So he's really building to this number 6 beautifully. Look, he hasn't really been tested still with a good attacking 5'8" that he's marking. That's going to come when the harder sides are here, but these little wins here and there just give him the confidence to know in certain circumstances what he has to do when those really good sides that have good halves and good edges ask a lot more questions of him. And number 10, I've gone the upside. What I mean by the upside, guys, now we're 3-1. We've got our next 2 weeks at home, Eels this Sunday, then the Broncos the following Easter Sunday, so we don't have to travel over Easter, which is just a goldmine for us. So the next 2 weeks we can settle into our routine, breakfast at home, training back home, all that sort of just simplistic stuff, sleeping in your own bed. Those things are really, really important. Just those little 1%ers where you can do things normally without going to an airport or whatever the case is. So the next 2 weeks are at home against an Eels side that is playing pretty well. I'll cover that in my top 10 preview on Friday about where the Eels I think are going to ask some questions, but where I think we can trump them. But they're playing with a lot of confidence. And then the following weekend, the Broncos, who are falling apart like a Hong Kong suit in a number of areas with their defence and their attack. So if we can get some really good Canberra Vikings and Canberra clap crowd over the next couple of weeks, that's just going to add volumes to these next 2 games to get the 2 points for both of them. So guys, look, that's it for now. Always enjoy your feedback on my top 10, guys, so please keep it coming. So I'll be back on Friday for my Eels preview. And as always, guys, bleed green, and this is Bourkeys out.